This podcast is about real estate with intelligence. It is pulling the sword from the stone. This podcast is about that unique balance in real estate, that balance between technological intelligence and our emotional intelligence and the transactions and interactions with one another in the real estate process. That's why we're inviting expert guests, people who are knowledgeable and bring different perspective. Join me in exploring this fascination, the look behind the scenes of technological advancement and how it's interacting with people's decisions in real estate. Welcome to Real Estate with Intelligence podcast. This is really exciting for me to have you on the podcast today because I've known you more than anybody and longer than anybody else that's worked at Chambers Theory and as colleagues before in our former company. It's been an awesome journey, and even in the act of talking through some questions and interviewing you before the podcast today, I learned some new things about you. So this is really exciting for me to have you here and also see your presence under camera, which is something I know that you work on. So one of the things that you don't need to work on is, well, we all need to work on is our job. But one of the things that you do exceptionally well is your servant leadership. Define your position, your role, what it is you do at Chambers Theory, and what do you bring to the job?
Okay, thank you. I'm the vice president of Chambers Theory Property Management, and I'm kind of just overseeing everyone on our team and working closely with our team members to make sure that we are providing the absolute best customer service, complete care, transparency, and just open communication at all times with our clients, our tenants, our agents, vendors, because everyone is all over the world. And we are trying to facilitate the management of our clients' properties in the best way that we know how. And in doing so, we have a team that's, very dedicated to that mission that we have in providing that care to everybody. And I just like watching where we're growing and where our portfolio is also growing with us.
So when I think Jessica Stinnette, like a few things immediately come to mind. One is servant leadership. And this is, you are the definition of servant leadership and what you bring to our team. And you help everybody else around you at raising their game so that we can all become a better company together. As a team, you lead the team by helping and serving all of them go to the next level. So the other thing I think of is this mama bear character. And it's really funny. One of the things I like to ask every one of our guests on the show is, if you were to relate to any character of any movie or TV show, who do you relate to most and why? And I already have an insight as to this, but I think it's so fitting for you. So we'd love for you to share with everybody what that is and how you see yourself.
So one of my favorite movies is actually The Blind Side. And I feel very closely related with Sandra Bullock because she is that fierce mama bear. And she is a fierce businesswoman as well. And I do consider myself to be both. I put a lot of hard work and dedication into my work, and I put a lot of hard work and dedication into raising my 3 children with my husband. And, sometimes it's 50-50, and sometimes, I'm working till 7 o'clock at night and the kids are eating cereal and I'm just not able to be with them. But, I do try to lead by example. And I know that, I want to instill in my children that working hard is really important, especially for my daughter. I have 2 boys and a girl, and I want to instill in her that, it is valuable to have your own job and have a mission outside of your family that you want to be working towards. And I love, the people that we work with. And I think that, this industry can be difficult, but when you're working with people that you enjoy, it makes working hard that much easier. And Sandra Bullock in the movie, I mean, she's working hard. She owns her own business, and at the same time, she's raising her family, adopting a child, going to all their sports games. I mean, that is everything I do in a nutshell every single day.
And it's funny to me to hear you say it's what you do. It's also the ferocity in which you do it. It's you bring that extra level to your family, to the sporting events, to all the communities you participate in and belong to, and our company. What is it that drives you to that level, though? It's not just leading by example. You bring it to another level of responsibility and care. What is it that drives that in you?
I have really high standards. I know that, and I always have, and I apply it to everything and everyone around me. So I have high standards for my kids. I have high standards for our employees. I even have high standards for our clients. I'm not going to tell a client something they want to hear. I'm going to tell the client, what is transparently the right answer, or guide them along the right way, even if it's a hard conversation to have, because I want them to be at that standard we're expecting, because we all need to be living to higher expectations so that we can raise that level of service, or raise that level of just how we want to be as humans, being active in the community, whether it's through PTA with the children, or, I find it very important to be at all of my kids' sporting events, because I want them to see that it matters that they're playing, and it may not matter to them that I'm there, but I'm still going to be there all the time. And I have this tremendous mom guilt if I'm not. But same with work. I mean, it's very important that our employees are seeing that we are working hard too. I mean, we may be in upper management, but that really does not matter. Like, we are in the thick of everything we do with our team, side by side with them, because we want to support them as they are supporting our clients.
So when you talked about guiding clients and telling them the truth that they need to hear, regardless of whether it's what they want to hear or not. Talk a little bit more about that and how that plays out. It's a strong position you're stating there, but what does that mean down the road after that one instance, that one decision? How does it affect other things?
Sure. There's so many instances I could play out, but having hard conversations is hard. That's why they're hard to have. They're not always easy, but they're needed. And to me, transparency is everything, professionally and personally. And so, we want our clients to have a good landlord experience. And the only way to do that is to guide them through that journey with them. So when we walk through a property, say at a consultation, and we've just met them, and of course the last thing we want to do is offend them in any way, but if we see that there's a wall with a hole in it, we're going to obviously advise that owner, like, that's probably not good for marketing. Like, let's go ahead and make sure we're going to take care of that, because presentation does set expectation. You're not trying to offend the owner that their house is messy or dirty, but we want to make sure that the property is in marketable condition, because we want to get you the highest rent we can. We're really good at that. But here are some of the things that you're going to need to do to help us achieve that. And sometimes a repair is needed at a property that an owner isn't happy about. Sometimes an owner tells us they only want families living in their house. Well, of course, that's a red flag. And, we love families. We have nothing against families. But what we can't do is say we want a family, because we're violating familial status, which is fair housing, and we could lose our brokerage. I mean, it's some very serious stuff. So we want to make sure that we are guiding our clients in the right way so that they have a positive outcome, even if those conversations can be difficult.
So when you talk about right way, like, are there clear right ways and wrong ways? And are there ever instances where it's not always clear, or there's multiple paths to follow? And, how do you bring advocacy when it's not always clear?
Every day it can be not clear, because every property has a different situation, different personalities of tenants, different personalities of owners, different situations with repairs. I mean, there's not always a right way. Sometimes it's just us trying to mitigate the loss of all the parties involved. Maybe a tenant really needs to break their lease because they lost their job and they can no longer pay rent. And the owner wants the lease to run through next year like it is supposed to. There's no real right way in this situation other than to try and help both parties. We want to make sure that the tenant is paying their rent, even though they're struggling. But we also want to try and get them out of the lease so that they don't do damage to the property. They aren't living there without paying the rent, and try and get the owner to get a new tenant in there that's going to respect the home and be able to pay rent on time. So that would be one situation where it may not be the right way per the lease that's black and white, but we're going to try and guide the owner to what we think is going to be the best solution for them.
So one of my favorite ideas in property management is good property management equals good procedures. And I know you love having sets of procedures for how we handle these things. One of my favorite things is what happens when you get a what if question. What if this happens? Or what if scenario actually happens? It's not just a question. In practice, it's happening. That how does it fit a procedure if it's such a wild circumstance? And, I think that we've seen extreme circumstances in property management all the time. What's the most recent one you've come across that you were like, wow, like this is really challenging. Procedures don't really fit this scenario?
Okay, so procedurally, yes, I do like to have everything very consistent. Again, because it sets that expectation with all parties involved when there's consistency in our messaging or consistency in our procedures. One-offs do happen, again, all the time. I think recently we had a new client meet us at their house for a consultation, and beautiful house, I think in Loudoun County. And they had a chicken coop, which is fine. And they had a cat, but both were conveying with the house.
What does that mean, conveying with the house?
They weren't leaving with the landlord like everything else in the house should, because we're advising clients to make sure that, they don't leave any personal property, because most tenants want to move into a home that is unfurnished with none of the owner's belongings so that they can make it their own. And that includes pets. But in this case, the owner where they're going cannot take the chicken coop or the cat. And we're hoping that we could find a tenant that would take both sets of animals and take care of them just the way they're taking care of their house.
And how does that fit procedurally when a cat and a chicken coop is requested from the landlord to convey to a tenant?
Well, normally it's the tenants requesting to add pets to the lease, not the landlord. So procedurally, we would hope the tenant may pay a pet rent, but I don't know that they would. Honestly, I'm really not sure how it's going to play out. I think it's going to be a negotiation, because while we can advertise that the cat and the chicken coop are remaining at the property, it does make me nervous that if someone doesn't know how to take care of chicken coop and chickens, or doesn't like cats, and then they don't take care of those animals, what would happen to them? And so we would need to write an addendum to the lease, kind of reflecting.
Of course, that makes you nervous.
What that would look like,
because you want everything to be cared for.
Yes,
you're the mama bear that wants everybody to be taken care of.
I would feel really, really awful if something happened to those pets. If a tenant moved in and said they were going to take care of animals that they ended up neglecting.
So this is the essence of this podcast: is all the different points of conflict that happen in property management, and all the very personal requests, and interesting dynamics between the psychology of the landlord, the psychology of the tenant, in all these different scenarios that happen in real estate. And defining the difference between technological intelligence, or a lot of the discussion recently about artificial intelligence and how it's going to change business and change everything else, is where are you seeing the mesh or the clear differences between what technological or artificial intelligence can offer the real estate and property management industry versus these unique scenarios that don't fall into procedures, versus the ferocity of advocacy that you provide to clients to guide them when there's different paths they can go on and it's unclear? Like, what do you see as where technology helps and where emotional intelligence kicks in in our business?
So, we're dealing with legal contracts. And so the technology side of things, we are very procedural in the paperwork we're producing. We're very efficient with our technology-driven database that we hold. It makes our company basically having the left hand talking with the right hand at all times. All information is accessible to everyone in the company across the board. And I know that you can't say that about most property management companies. One of the things that you hear all the time is, well, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's talking about. No one knows what's going on with my property. That's not the case here. And so technology-wise, we're very driven. But emotional intelligence, to me, is the most important and will never go away. Real estate is personal. And, we do guide our clients that once your home is a rental, it becomes a business and you need to try and take the emotion out of it. And it's easier said than done. I think our clients are usually really good about that. And we have protections in place to help take care of their property, because most of the time they are clients that are going to be returning home. These are not investment homes for them. There's some investors, but a lot of them plan on returning to these properties. So there is that emotional side of things. But on top of that, there's an emotional side to the renters. This is going to be their house. They want to have a connection with the property manager. They want to have a connection with the agent to make sure that the agent that's showing them the house, is being transparent with the condition and what to expect. And, if the tenant has a question on the neighborhood or the schools, like, we're going to be advising them to go look online. But, having that connection with the renters and having that connection with the landlords is something that we have to do. And part of why we care so much at what we do, because it's not all procedural and it's not all technological. It's that emotional aspect that we have in providing that care to our clients.
So, have you ever looked up on ChatGPT whether you could rent your house to a tenant with chickens and what they would do about it?
No, but I probably should see what that response is.
So you're not totally convinced that ChatGPT is going to be replacing property managers anytime soon?
I'm not, because, I think some companies are already using robots to answer their phones. Actually, I would say, I think last week we actually tested 5 different local property management companies where we called during normal business hours and we got a machine. When you call Chambers Theory, you get a human. And I don't know about anyone else, but when I am calling a company to get questions answered, I am furious when I am pushing buttons and answering 100 ridiculous robot questions when I just want to talk to someone. So I'm just pressing 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 until I can get the customer service rep. That phone rings, we are immediately picking up, and a human is on the other end to help provide that customer service.
When you're talking about customers, you're typically talking about tenants in property management, and clients are typically the landlord.
Yes.
In a scenario where you have tenants that are potentially going to be renewing the lease or coming up on renewal, what are some of the insights that you can provide from your expertise, from your experience, that says, hey, these are some of the emotionally intelligent factors. These are some of the factors that come into play when a tenant's evaluating whether they're going to renew their lease or not,
Sure.
or whether the tenant's going to say, hey, like the landlord's asked me to pay 5% or 10% increase in the rent. Like, what are some of the things that you see that it's not just mechanical? It's not just what the comps say. It's XYZ from an emotionally or psychological level affecting these tenants that it's going to play into the decision.
Right. So, I think one of the number one indicators is if they're happy in the home, right? And there's a lot of factors that play into that happiness. It could be that they have children and their kids are best friends with the neighbor. It could be that they don't have children and they're best friends with the neighbor. It could be that they love they love the house location because of the school, or maybe they love the house location because it's close to their work or close to the metro or public transportation. It could also be that maybe the house is perfectly maintained, right? They put in a work request and the owners agree to it because the owners aren't thinking, oh gosh, this tenant is asking for another repair. They're thinking, oh yeah, I remember that sliding door being sticky. I'm gonna go ahead and fix that for the tenant because I want them to be happy. And yeah, I dealt with it for years, but I understand their frustration. I want them to renew the lease. I'm gonna keep that property maintained. But it's also, we play a part in it. And so when we're going to the annual inspection, which is usually 5 to 7 months into a lease, and then if the lease is renewed, we do an annual inspection every year thereafter. The tenants are oftentimes home, and they know that we're coming. We don't just show up. And, our inspectors are holding conversations. They're building that relationship just through the walkthrough with the tenant. We're building relationships with these tenants when they're calling us on the phone, when they're emailing us. Like every opportunity that we have to correspond with a customer, with a tenant, we're building on those relationships. We're building that trust. And that is going to help them trust us back and feel like, okay, this house is being taken care of by this property management company. I really like this area. The rents have been going up because it is Northern Virginia and DC area. And we're able to get 10% renewal increases pretty consistently across the board. And I have a feeling it has a lot to do with everything I just listed.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear the level of importance you place on building a relationship with the customer who's not technically our client. Mm-hmm. And you see such importance on taking care of those customers. And earlier you discussed the importance of honesty and transparency with telling the clients not what they want to hear, but what they need to hear for the best outcomes or to optimize their experience as a landlord based on your experience. So here we are on a lease renewal process, and there's been all these efforts that your teams have guided to build a relationship with the customer, the tenant, in that process. And then we're coming up on this day where we're going to call the tenant and say, hey, it's time to renew the lease. We're thinking about a 10% rent increase. Tell me when those conversations go wrong and when those conversations go right.
Sure. So most often you'll see them go wrong when the tenant is disgruntled. It could be something as simple as, I've been complaining about this dishwasher for a year. Like, it's older than all the other appliances. I don't understand why the owner won't just replace it. And the owner's stance is, well, I don't really want to place it if it's not broken. Like, it's still functioning. It's working fine. That dishwasher could be $200, right? Maybe $300 when you install it. We could get a renewal increase of $200 a month and cover that cost of the dishwasher and install in 1 month's rent at that renewal. And it's really important that our team, which I think we do a really good job of, is seeing that value to the owner, showing that value to the owner that, yes, it is a repair that maybe you don't think is justified, but sometimes it doesn't matter if it's justifiable or not. It's what the tenant feels is important to them. And if it's important enough for them to want to move out, if that dishwasher is not replaced, let's go ahead and replace it. And we're going to increase the rent at the same time. We literally just had this scenario happen last week. We got a $200 increase, and we gave the owner 3 different options of a dishwasher. They picked one that was $230.
So actually, there's plenty of justifications. It's just not the justification to fix something that isn't broke. It's the justification of the financial reward or trade-off of the investment into the property to keep your customer happy versus the outcome of the additional rent you receive. This podcast, Real Estate with Intelligence, we like to do things in a smarter way. We like to get great insights from experts in their field like you. Yet there's always this human element I'm interested in, which is, do you have any unique talents or stupid human tricks or funny stories about something that was just kind of a dumb moment? And I'd love for you to share with us, what your human side looks like for someone who has such high standards for not just themselves, but everybody around them in real estate, in your community, and your family and everything you do. When's a moment that you just let down or failed your own standard?
So, it is funny. It's also very stupid. And after I screamed, then I was laughing at how stupid it was. But most people know I absolutely hate cooking. I've always hated it. My mom was a great cook. I think she just always cooked and I just never learned. And so when I was in college, it was basically just pasta or whatever my husband's meal plan was at college. And that's how we survived until we graduated. But this just happened a year ago. And I have 3 kids, so I don't enjoy cooking, but I have to. And the last thing I want to do after I've been working all day is
That is the problem with kids. You have to feed them.
Yeah, you do. God, it's such a pain. I mean, they won't eat cereal for dinner, but maybe like once in a blue moon. Anyway, I was making chicken noodle soup in Instapot because Instapot was amazing. Like you pop things in, 30 minutes later, it's ready to eat. Well, I'd used it so much that I lost a piece from the top. And it was the little sensor, like it pops up once it needs to release the steam. Well, I didn't know where it went and I had no backup plan. So I just looked in the drawer, found my wine stopper, plugged it in there, set the timer. And 30 minutes later, I was like, oh, it's been 30 minutes. It should be ready. Yeah. So I pulled the topper out and immediately just a geyser of chicken noodle soup shot all the way up to my 10-foot ceiling, was smashing the ceiling and just dropping down. And I'm just screaming my husband's name like, Mark, oh my God, what is going on? And he's like running in here. That was my really stupid moment. And when I called my mom and told her, she was like, Jessica, that could have exploded. Like you could have gotten 3rd-degree burns. What were you thinking? I was like, I wasn't thinking. I don't know. I just was trying to make dinner. I wanted to. So anyway, that's my very stupid cooking moment.
And now it's a great story that I'm sure you and your family laugh about from time to time.
Surprisingly, there's no vegetable oil stain on the ceiling because we jumped up on the counter really quick and wiped it down, and the Instapot did go into the trash. So.
And are you gonna like note the anniversary of the great chicken soup incident so your kids can tease you going forward?
The chicken soup is now made in a crock pot.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Thanks for weighing the balance between emotional intelligence and technological intelligence and real estate and property management, and for everything that you've done in leading the way in our industry and leading the way at our company.
Thanks.
This podcast is about real estate with intelligence. It is pulling the sword from the stone. This podcast is about that unique balance in real estate, that balance between technological intelligence and our emotional intelligence and the transactions and interactions with one another in the real estate process. That's why we're inviting expert guests people who are knowledgeable and bring different perspective. Join me in exploring this fascination, the look behind the scenes of technological advancement and how it's interacting with people's decisions in real estate.